I didn't enjoy Black Panther at all, but I thought Captain Marvel was a better movie than Black Panther, but I didn't like Captain Marvel.
Okay, so this is interesting. So I don't think Black Panther was a perfect movie. I think,
Yeah,
especially, I understand some reasons you can only go so much and keep it, let's say, family friendly, and
yeah.
try to please the audience. But what would be your criticisms or one of your major
Um,
things that it
but
was lacking?
the thing with, I mean, I'm an aeroplane nut. So when you take an F-15 pilot and make her the center of a action, like the concept to me works just better. You've got an F-15 pilot, and there are fighter pilots who are women. They do a good job, and yeah, there are fighter pilots who are women, so that's perfectly reasonable to start with. Maybe not all the fighter pilots in that squadron being women. I mean, there was the Nachtsehen in World War II who were Russian,
Mm,
and they flew they modified training aeroplanes to drop bombs on tanks, and the Nachtsehen were insane. But a fighter pilot testing a new technology gets drawn into an intergalactic war sort of seems somewhat more, I hate to say it, realistic than African nation that's in hiding with the king. Like, I'm not really into royalty.
got it.
Like Prince, like I really, to me, the whole royal thing. I mean, Prince Philip died this week. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, I saw a lot of memes of that.
So I have a very uncomfortable feeling about royalty. So it didn't, I didn't enjoy it as much.
Got it.
And the costume, he's got claws. It's like, come on, you can do better than that, Marvel.
Yeah, I mean Wolverine has his
Yeah, they're
those are
proper fucking claws.
yeah,
They're
those
like
are
cat claws that come out,
yeah.
and then they get turned into adamantium, and like they're proper claws, but like end of your fingers are a bit girly, aren't
That was I guess the comics were trying to keep it like an actual panther. But yeah, I
they?
see what
Yeah,
you mean with the royalty that doesn't leave a good aftertaste.
not for
No,
me, but
yeah.
like for real royalists, that would be a cool thing. But for me, I mean, I was disappointed in Captain Marvel because it's like, cool, you got F-15 pilots, this could be great, and then it's just like, oh no, it just kind of went downhill from there.
You got
But
your hopes up.
yeah, I was kind of hoping for more F-15 fighter pilot scenes but that wasn't that the one with the cat, the ginger cat.
Yeah, the cat
Yeah,
became like a meme as well.
yeah, yeah. The cat is everybody's scared of this little ginger cat. I thought that was funny. I did think that was good.
Yeah,
But
because the cat was also an alien.
yeah, the cat was an alien in disguise. So it was just like everybody's thinking, oh, it's this ginger cat, and all the Kree were like terrified of it and running away.
Yeah.
And Fury, I think it's quite funny how Fury ends up with the one eye. He just gets his little scratch from the cat.
Yeah, I was like, I was expecting something so much more.
Yeah, well, I think it was funny because it explains why he's so embarrassed to tell anybody what happened to his eye.
Mm, yeah, that
Little
makes a
cat
lot of
scratch.
sense.
He got beaten up by a little cat. I think that's hilarious. But no, my favorite of them is Thor, the
Thor.
captain. Oh yeah, gotta be Thor, God of Thunder.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I thought that was a good. I thought that was a good movie. Tom Hiddleston plays Loki so well.
Yeah, and I think he's getting his own movie now or show.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I mean, he's got shows in England. He's always on talk shows in England and stuff. But I like it's not only like you'd like to be like Thor, but I can quite relate to Loki. So it's because I've got an older brother that's always been bigger and stronger, and everybody loves my brother, and I was a bit more like Loki as a kid. So it's like, of course, we all want to be Thor, but I can really sort of relate to Loki. So for me, the Thor 1, Thor 2 was okay. Ragnarok, all right, had a few good laughs in it. It did change. They changed the tone, which I liked.
Yeah, they did.
It became more of a funny film rather than. And there was a few good jokes in that, but yeah, Thor. I did like Iron Man too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, number 2, Iron Man as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah.
So, Iron Man, because I'm always drawing things and inventing things, and kind of would like to be Tony Stark. So for me, yeah, Iron Man, Thor, yeah, they're good.
Yeah, like my favorite Thor appearance. I mean, I guess might be obvious, but it wasn't Endgame. It
Mm.
was the one right before that one.
Oh,
War?
Civil War.
Civil War. It's when
Yeah,
they first fought Thanos.
I think that was Civil War.
Maybe Avenger. Infinity War. There we go.
Infinity. Oh,
Infinity
yeah,
War.
okay.
Yeah, it was when Thor comes back, and it's when he first arrived in Wakanda, and it was just like this big badass moment. He just
Yeah.
he shows up and he just
Oh yeah,
wrecks. It was just
yeah.
like the proper God of Thunder.
That scene in the opening of Thor 1, he turns up at this major battle. I'm here to accept your surrender. And they all laugh. He just hits the one guy, and everybody just downs weapons. It's
Yep.
like, yeah, I'm here to accept your surrender. That's a brilliant. That happened quite a bit during World War II. There was a major in England, the British Army major. His nickname was Mad Jack, but his name Winston. No, Mad Jack Churchill. His name was Jack Churchill, and he had a small platoon, and he stormed the beaches of Normandy. He was deployed to Sword Beach. He's the guy carrying a European longsword. There's photo. He's not got any rifles on him. He's got a European longsword,
Just
which is totally badass. Mad Jack. But there were many times when he was surrounded by Germans, and he would charge the line of Germans on his own and demand their surrender, and they would. The Germans would surrender to this guy who had a sword because they just thought we're outnumbered. And then there'd be like 20 British soldiers who'd go and round them up. And there were times where he had over 100. There was one report he got a medal for. If I can't remember all the details perfectly, but there was only 20 men left in his platoon, and he was facing over 100 Germans, and he knew that they were all young conscripts. So he simply demanded their surrender because he was an older man.
yeah.
And the Germans surrendered because they didn't know how few British that there were. So yeah, he was a crazy guy.
Nice. It looks like he had a bow on him as well. I think that's one of his famous photographs. Just looking online.
Yeah, that sounds about right. You always used to carry bagpipes as well.
Yeah.
Shirts.
Yo.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What up?
Just getting out of bed. I need a little bit of extra time.
Same.
To be honest.
Yeah. Wake up and test your brain for a bit, and then go back to bed.
Yeah. Well, you guys know how my Sundays are. I got a bunch of errands to run usually, so
Yeah.
fortunately, I don't get to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I could stay on here for about an hour though.
Cool.
Definitely.
Cool.
I was like, I have to make it to this chat. Yeah.
So you need a reason to get out of bed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No, it does give me a reason to not sleep forever and then not get stuff done. So, but How you guys been? What you guys talking about?
We're a
We
couple
were just
different
talking
things.
about the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Very important stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Nice.
how Peterson's sort of involved with Marvel now.
Oh yeah, I like bought one of his shirts immediately.
Nice.
Yeah.
I went to buy one of his shirts today, but the checkout doesn't work. I think they sold out.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I have to support this.
That's
So
crazy. They already sold out.
Yeah. I don't know. I just went to click on check to buy now, a checkout, or whatever it is, proceed, and it just would not work.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know if they've had to put a pause on things. I don't know, but I would love a Hail Lobster t-shirt.
I mean, it's a good design too.
yeah,
Yes.
it was super cool.
Yeah.
I was
I
like,
was just saying to Frank that I think that's great branding. Like him as I think inadvertently they've actually hit on something really good because they were trying to like jab at Peterson by calling him Red Skull. But the
yeah.
truth is, if you took Steve Rogers, a real Steve Rogers, 90-pound asthmatic, gets beaten up all the time but wants to fight the good fight,
Mm.
and then you give him a serum to make him Captain America, he will become Red Skull every time.
Mm.
Whereas if you've got someone who's naturally like Red Skull, he can be Red Skull, but he could be Captain America.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Like
I'm
the doctor who come up with the serum in the story, he's like, oh well, we need a little guy who can respect the power. And I was, yeah, sure. Little guys do respect power. That's how they don't get beaten up all the time. But they don't have any experience being powerful. So it's like Red Skull could become Captain America, but never the the little guy becoming it just so the fact that Jordan Peterson is a bloody monster in these things in these interviews and he can destroy people, but he's not I knew at my first flying club I was part of in Canada. There was one instructor everybody said don't ever fly with. He was a child psychiatrist from Australia, and he would make grown men cry. Seriously, like they'd get out the airplane and they'd be crying. He would know exactly. He was very good, socially skilled, but his whole job was just take children and break them so the parents can deal with them. And it's like you do need to really know what people's nerves are and their soft spots are to do that. But he could destroy people, and it's like whereas Peterson can do the same thing, but he does it with the intent of helping people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Hey, and like on YouTube, I guess I follow a bunch of lefties, so I see like everyone's opinions on it, and of course everyone's cheering. They're like, "Oh, of course he's Red Skull." Like people like Vosh and shit like that. They're
yeah.
like, oh, Jordan Peterson's fanboys are so mad because this or that. It's like, dude, you just create like this fucking straw man of everyone you think is like far
Yeah.
right or like you don't like, and then you pick all the low hanging fruit from the straw man you've created. Like, if you're gonna critique him or what have you, it's like look into his shit. Like, look into what opinions he has about the things that you think he has opinions about. Because I don't know if you guys know that Eric Weinstein does like a live video sometimes on Instagram.
I haven't seen them.
Yeah, he'll like speak with people, and one of these guys had this like criticism, and he was like, "Oh well, why didn't you stand up for Stefan Molyneux whenever Stefan Molyneux got banned off of all platforms?" And Eric Weinstein was like, "Wait, what?" Because he did stand up for him on Twitter. He's like, "I don't like what this guy says." He's like, "I think it's." I don't know I don't
He's a
know about the
fucked
message.
up guy, Stefan Molyneux.
Huh?
Stefan Molyneux is a pretty fucked up guy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what he was saying. He's like, I don't know about this guy, but like just the fact of like mass deplatforming, like it kind of scares me and all that stuff. He's like, he pretty much the whole free speech model. Like, I don't like what you have to say, but I'll fight for your right to say it.
Mm.
And so he said exactly that, and this guy was like, "Oh, you guys in the IDW, you guys, this is what you're supposed to stand for." But I didn't see any of you guys saying anything about Stefan Molyneux, especially you. And then like he was being really hostile towards Eric, and I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen Eric, but he's like really, kind of like soft and
Yeah.
laid back and
Oh
like
yeah, he's a
kind
total professor.
yeah, and he was just being so rude to him, and like he was like, okay, well, do you like look at my Twitter feed or anything like that? And the guy was like, no, I don't watch everything that you do. And it's like, well, you don't have to watch everything that someone does. You have to watch the part that that you're talking about. Like look for the information that you're talking about. Like what you think he talked about. Why don't you fucking type it in Google if you don't think he talked about it? It'll be right there. You don't have to look at everything. I
Yeah.
hate when people do that shit. And I would apply that same principle to like all the lefties that I see on YouTube that are like cheering this shit on. It's like, well, why don't you just look up like what Jordan Peterson's beliefs are on this
Why
particular?
don't you read a book before you criticize it?
No, there you go.
Yeah, like you can criticize a fucking chapter, read it. The one chapter that in 12 Rules for Life that I actually think is, I think it's right, but it's not complete. Is about don't let your kids do anything you dislike. I think yeah, that's true that you shouldn't let your kids do anything because that you're a person in society and you don't want your kids to be disliked by people in society, of course. But that really like there are a lot of parents who are psychos, total power freaks, and it's like it doesn't really talk about keeping that in check because it's like people do get intense pleasure from dominating someone, and it's like so easy with a kid. But yeah, it's yeah, that I think if I think he could have written that much better.
Yeah, I would hope that maybe the person would gain some better characteristics through the rest of the chapters of the book, like as far as self improvement goes. Like I would hope, from there they would gain the insight to say, well, maybe I shouldn't be some like insane tyrant toward my
Yeah,
children.
yeah.
But at the same
Why?
yeah, I think that maybe that could have been like in addition to that chapter, because it's like
Yeah.
it's don't let your children do anything that will make you dislike them, right?
Yeah,
And
which is he's right in what he says.
Yeah,
But what he doesn't say in that is that yeah, you can be an unreasonable person too.
right, for
So
sure.
you end up with kids who have like really weird quirks, like they end up quite socially anxious, or they end up quite particularly with parents who are ex-military. You end up with kids who have this sort of militaristic childhood.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's not really how most people behave. That would work in the military, but but so it's a minor criticism, saying maybe you could have written that better, but
Well,
I still don't disagree with it.
yeah, I mean, at least it's well thought out. I feel like a lot of people that, like I said, criticize like Jordan and his book and all that stuff. Like I feel like most of them. Well, I don't even feel like this. I know this. Most of them make a straw man of like the point that he's trying to make, and then they pick that low hanging fruit, and they're like, oh ha ha, like look at you, like I just got you, like now you have fucking tomatoes on your face or something. I don't know, like that's what they're trying to sit here and do all day long, just throw tomatoes at him. And if you like actually watch him, you'll see that the points that these people are making about him, like they're not at all correct. Like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the people who were in the IDW, because I'm not sure, I'm not entirely sure as to whether or not it's a group anymore, but a lot of them now, like they're so careful with what they say, they add like 17 caveats to like what they're fucking what point they're trying to make. And did you guys see Eric went on Joe Rogan recently?
No, Eric?
No. Seen him on there, but not recently.
Yeah, it was like I think it was second to last podcast.
Nice. So well, there's something to watch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I went on there, and they were having their conversation or what have you, and Eric said something, and then Joe Rogan was like, "Yeah," and then like that's not to say this or whatever, because people might think you're this or that. And then Eric was like, he's like, "How about we just say what we are?" He's like, "Yeah, we are transphobic, and we're Nazis, this and that." He's like, "Let's just own all of these titles." He's like, "I'm tired of putting all these caveats like in front of the point that I'm trying to make." He's like, "I'm so tired of it."
Be funny. Jordan Peterson comes out. You know what? Bump it. I'm Red Skull. That's who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Captain
It's like
America
that
is in my basement. You guys figured it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that thing at Oxford. He was talking about, the discovery of the egalitarian paradox and all of that, and and it goes against what psychologists say because all the right wing psychologists are in this chair, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's yeah, I don't think there's. I still can't see the crime in being scared of something. Like phobic means irrational fear of, right? So being basphobic means you're scared of heights, right? Of depth, of heights, right? So sometimes that's an irrational fear, but sometimes that's a natural fear that is going to save your life.
Right.
And being homophobic, well, I know gay people, and the gay people I know would never rape anybody. But there are gay people, there are straight people who would rape you. So it's like, yeah, having a fear of something is sometimes warranted. And it's saying you're homophobic. It's like, well, maybe, but I don't really see how that's a crime yet. And because I haven't done anything, I'm just scared of you, right?
I would ask like what do they mean by that? Because I think what a lot of people mean by when they say transphobic is they mean, because there are two definitions of phobic, like a phobia, and one is an irrational fear, and one is like it's a prejudice, and a prejudice is an unjustified opinion that has it's like an unjustified negative opinion. I believe. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, that's fair.
And so yeah, I would say like, well, what do you mean by that? Do you mean that I'm like, because most of the time what I see on Twitter is like someone will be like, "Oh, you're transphobic," and the person will be like, "I'm not scared of trans people," and the person's like, "I don't mean you're scared of trans people. You have a prejudice towards trans people," and so Jordan actually has a lecture wherein he actually speaks on this. Well, not on this particular thing, but he's like, as far as like a prejudice goes, he's like, yeah, I mean, you are prejudiced, especially in dating. And I thought about it, and I was like, well, I don't think he used the right word, because to have a prejudice is to have like an unjustified sort of where like and I mean,
Yeah,
as far as like,
you have an intuition, and you prejudge people a lot before you even speak to them, and that's your intuition. But a prejudice has the connotation that you are taking unreasonable
it's like
ideas about them into practice.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you don't know what you're talking about. Like when you just completely misstate something about, like, say, a type of person. Like, all of this type of person is like this. It's like, well, that's not it. Where are you getting that from? Like, if it's something like that and it's unjustified, right? It's just kind of like a weird statement that's not backed by fact or anything like that. It's like, okay, well, that would be a prejudice. Whereas if you have an opinion of somebody based on a fact, like, say, a trans person or what have you, because I've been seeing like so many arguments about like, oh, super straight and transphobic and this and that, and I'm like, God, man, what? No, I'm not gonna do a whole like, super straight. Like, I just like biological women, and I think that Brett and Heather, um, they put it a little bit harsh when they said it, but because they made a comment on this whole super straight thing, and
Sorry, I'm not aware of the term super straight. I'm not caught up.
okay, so some guy on TikTok made
TikTok.
like a sort of meme. Yeah, I don't watch TikTok, so it just got viral, and it was just kind of like a meme where he's like, I'm gonna create this new sexuality, and it's gonna be called super straight, wherein
So,
only like biological women, and like he made a couple of
so
other, but there was just like a huge uproar where everyone was like, "No, you're transphobic. Trans women are women. Like, period. That's it. You know, if you don't date trans women, you have to tell us why. Like, we get to interrogate you about your sexual preferences and shit like
Jesus.
that." And it's like, in what other instance do you get to interrogate people about their sexual preferences besides?
Yeah, if you're a straight white guy, you're under the lie detector these days.
Yeah, and it's like, I would you ever ask like a lesbian woman why she won't date a man? Like,
Well,
like
it's
harp
obvious.
so like bad, like harp so bad on it.
Yeah,
Just I don't think this like community that is that has straight people in the in the interrogation room would do the same to like say a lesbian. Well, I mean, I guess they would now, like as far as
yeah.
it goes.
I
Uh,
mean, I've got one friend who is a lesbian, and just out of curiosity, I asked her once, like, what attracts you to your girlfriend?
mm,
It's not the same things that a bloke is attracted to her for. It's a bit different. Yeah, and I was just curious more than anything else. But
yeah,
um, that was a discussion between friends. It's not like,
yeah,
but no, I wouldn't date it. I mean, I sometimes make a bit of a joke about it. I wouldn't date a trans woman because I would like to have the biggest penis in the relationship. So,
the one
but
with
no,
the best.
genuinely, I wouldn't date a trans woman because it's like, well, nearly all of uh, of everybody who is transgender is involved in the politics now. Not all of them, but nearly all of them. And it's like I wouldn't want to be involved. I don't want to be involved in politics at home.
Yeah, Brett Weinstein and Heather Heig made a comment about, like I said, they put it kind of harsh, and they were like, "Well, you know, if you're just a straight man, and you won't date a trans person, and you like the justification is that you like women and not men who dress up and call themselves women."
Hmm.
Pretty much, that's what he said, and I was just like, "Well, I mean, I don't know how to," because if you think about it, if someone were to ask you, like, "Well, why won't you? What's the difference between a trans woman and like a biological woman?" And so it's like a kind of name the trait thing, where they can be like, "Well, not all women have this. Well, not all biological women have that. Well,
There's
not all."
certainly more masculine. Certainly a spectrum amongst both genders of how masculine or feminine you are.
You know,
Like, there's really, really masculine men, and then there's quite effeminate men, and then you'll find some masculine women who are biologically women but quite masculine are quite a bit more masculine than some men, and then you got your really feminine. So it's it depends what you're attracted to. I mean,
it all
the
comes down to preference.
yeah, it's quite funny when you it's like these girls who've really bought into feminism. They believe that I earn six figures, I have a good car, I have all these things. It's like they think that that's going to attract a man, and it's like, no, men are not attracted. They're projecting what they find attractive onto what you would find attractive. And it's like, well, men don't care what car you drive. Men don't care how much you earn. Men care about, generally speaking, men find fertile women attractive. And
Yeah, I mean, I guess from an evolutionarily biological perspective, that is
yeah.
true. So
And why do you think 14-year-old girls look a bit creepy, especially when they wear makeup? It looks really creepy. But you get a 22-year-old girl, they could even be the same height, but it's like the 22-year-old is attractive, but the 14-year-old is like that sort of creepy, sort of almost like the AI, the uncanny valley of AI, right?
a
It's
little
because
bit
it's like, if you were
off-putting.
to mate with a 14-year-old, not only are you going to jail, but the kid is probably your offspring is not likely going to survive.
You know, well, yeah, I mean, It is off-putting, and I that brought something into my head that's been kind of I don't know why I've been hearing this all week, and it's been, I guess, people speaking about Islam and about the Prophet Muhammad and
Yeah,
about how he had like a 9-year-old wife or something like that.
yeah, Aisha. So, what was a common thing at the time was basically Muhammad was a warlord. He was
Mm-hmm.
a real man, very well documented throughout history.
Okay.
But he's I think it was Aisha was his youngest wife. I think it was Aisha. Anyway, if a warlord with his little army would conquer a village or a town or something, as he did quite a lot, because he was apparently quite good at waging war, um, they very often the youngest girls wouldn't be slaughtered; they would be married off to the men that conquered. And that didn't necessarily mean for sex. That very often was the case, like married, adopted, but by marriage, not legal adoption. So oftentimes it's not very clear throughout history whether his youngest wife Aisha, I think it was Aisha, was adopted for the sake of being a daughter or adopted for the sake of pedophilia. Now, it's not clear, but both of those things were what happened at the time.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
I keep running into this thing where people are saying, "Well, we can't impose like our modern moral system on these people that lived all the way back then." And I thought, well, okay, so if you're a part of this religion and these are your holy scriptures, I don't understand how they don't transcend time. Like they're kind of valuable to the I guess the time period that we're in. And
yeah,
as
moral relativism.
yeah, it's like as we progress, I and look back, like we can pass judgment upon these holy scriptures. And it's like, well, if you're in the religion and you believe that these are the holy scriptures and these are the word, you know, straight from God, it's like how do you get a how do you as a mere like mortal get to pass judgment on holy scriptures? Like, wouldn't you live by that?
Well,
And I think that would put him in a weird position. I don't know.
yeah. So how it works with Islam is what Christianity. The idea is that God wrote the Bible through someone, right? So God's words came out of someone writing with a pen. And one of the reasons why that is because there was a lot more scriptures to Christianity. Mary had scriptures. Judas had scriptures. All of these, but in 326, I believe it was the Council of Nicaea, which decided which scriptures were going to be in the Bible. They got rid of Mary's scriptures because they didn't want anything written by a woman, because fuck that. At the time, they were fuck that, we're not having equality. They got rid of Judas's scriptures, and they decided that Jesus would be the Son of God and an immortal, not a mortal man, because that was quite ambiguous. So the idea in Christianity is that God wrote and edited this and translated God knows how many times the Bible, but in Islam, it's never been translated. It's still in Arabic, and the idea is that Muhammad is the perfect man. He lived the perfect life, and everything he did was perfect.
Mhm.
And you are to right now in every Muslim family, the oldest son is supposed to be called Muhammad. They are supposed to be able to read the Quran by 8 and try and follow in Muhammad's footsteps. Now, this is where it comes to be quite a philosophical difference. Some people believe that, yeah, Muhammad did great things and he was the perfect man, and he brought women from zero status to that of half of a man. So, he made an improvement. So, to be the perfect man, you must make an improvement. However, Most Muslims believe that because he said a woman is half the value of a man, that is where it ends. That's what he said. That's perfect. And this is a lot of the difficulty with Islam, because he married a 9-year-old. Now, it's unclear whether it was for sex or for parenting, and she stayed with him throughout his life. And later in life, it was very clear that she was a wife. She took the role of wife, but that wasn't very clear about that. It's not clear when she was young, but because he did that, girls should be married off before they hit puberty. And it's like the context of that is missing, but the action of it is exactly what. So it's the interpretation which is the problem. And yeah, this moral relativism thing. My dad and I have this argument all the time. It's like he says you can't call it pedophilia because it was so normal at the time. It's like, yes, but pedo means child and philia means love of, sexual pleasure of. So yeah, if the person is a child and you have sexual pleasure of them, that is pedophilia. And our language is objective. So as far as I can see, our language is objective, so we must use the right word for the action that we see, not but it was normal and it wasn't any younger than normal. Well, it's still pedophilia in our language today.
Yeah, I would I would say that's true. I guess my main gripe with this is the fact that, as you said, he's supposed to be the perfect man doing the perfect actions, and it's like, well, okay, does that mean that's okay in that religion? Because you can't. Again, my whole problem is that we're gonna say he's the perfect man doing the perfect things, but say, well, not this thing. It's like,
Yeah.
I feel like you're kind of tied to some pretty bad stuff if you're gonna have to believe that.
Yeah, right. It's,
Man doing perfect things.
yeah,
I don't. Maybe I don't.
and life isn't that simple either. It's like, do you think that him improving women's situation was perfect, or calling a woman half of a man was perfect? He banned infanticide too. So he was actually at the time a great improvement to women's lives, because baby girls were just abandoned. Men wanted sons, so baby girls were just abandoned. Within his religion, his following, he banned all infanticide. So you couldn't just abandon a girl because it was a girl. So that's an improvement in women's lives. But not slaughtering Aisha by marrying her. Now that was an improvement in her life, but what intent was it? That's unclear. And people, and what I think it is that people in the Middle East now and under these religions now, they have what they want to do, and they just interpret the ambiguity in their favor. So if you've got a man in Syria who's a pedophile, he'll just interpret that as, oh, well, look, Muhammad did it, I'll do it too. Whereas if you've got someone who's a real champion for women's rights, he'll say, yes, but Muhammad improved this woman's life, so I'm going to do the same. So it's unlike Christianity, where you've got, like, the Bible is like, here's a little story, here's the meaning of this story. Jordan Peterson does exactly those lectures, the biblical series. The Quran is just an account of a man's life.
Right. So I guess what would be appropriate would be to do, I guess, sort of, I don't know. I wonder if it would be appropriate to do like a cost-benefit analysis of his life, and then see, I guess, what kind of character he was based on that. Because it seems as though, he did do some good, but it's like, okay, well, how good was it, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, at the time, before him, women were put to death for being raped. Whereas after him,
Okay.
if I think it was 4 women witnessed the rape, it was they would convict the man, right? So that's a major improvement, but that's not that's not what we would call equality today. The lives of the people who followed him were vastly improved, but the level they were at before is so much lower than we can imagine today.
Okay.
Yeah, the thing is, like, there is a paralleled criticism with, let's say, Christianity, because in the Bible you have the Old Testament, and we do have stories in the Bible, but throughout it there are, let's say, rules/laws that Israelites today still follow, like Orthodox Jews and such. But one thing, I think, I forgot who mentioned this, Jordan might have had some input, but we look at these laws or these rules established throughout time. And the thing is, it's what are the intent of these laws? The question is whether are these laws meant to be ideal laws or are these incremental improvement laws? Because like for a crack addict, okay, so for example, really ridiculous, a crack addict, you don't remove all the crack, you don't cut them off clean immediately and just stick them in a room and hope they get better. You have to like wean them off, right?
Yeah.
So let's say if a prophet of God in the Quran or in the Bible was like, you know what, let me help this person. Hey man, take 60% less crack. We're not going to take that as, oh, nowadays I can just take 60% less crack. It says it in the Bible. No, because the intent wasn't, this isn't the ideal law, it's an improvement. So like with the Bible, we see improvements. And let's say the government structure and whatever social economic rules, in every aspect you could see changes. And I would say that's the point, because it's hard and there might be ambiguity, and that's fair. It's a fair enough critique. I don't think it's ridiculously obvious which rules or laws are ideals and which rules and laws were placed and imposed for improvement's sake. And that's where the ambiguity and the conflict, that's where conflict arises.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's quite clear throughout when you look at the history of the Middle East that the advent of Islam was a great thing for the Middle East. In the 7th century, things improved. In the 8th century, things kept improving. In the 9th century, things kept improving. Up until about the 1300s, where there was a major regression. So, I mean, Iraqi, well, I didn't call them Iraqi at the time, but in Baghdad, they developed batteries. They developed mathematics. We still use Arabic numbers, numerals today. They developed the number 0, which is a huge discovery in mathematics. They'd calculated the circumference of the world. They didn't quite understand it, but they'd calculated it. But it was really under the reorganization of Islam under the Wahhabists, and the Wahhabists today are known as the Saudi Arabians, who deemed that numbers were work of the devil and science was the work of the devil, and that saw the regression. And basically, the Middle East these days, the fundamentalists want it to be as close to the year 700 as possible, and that was in the couple hundred years after Muhammad, there was huge improvements in quality of life and law and order and peace and science. Come to the 1300s, the restructuring of basically a royal family I'm not sure if it's the same royal family that's in the Saudi Arabian power today, but the restructuring caused by the Wahhabists and the destruction of culture, just like in China, the Wahhabists came to power. They destroyed everything they came into contact with. when the Chinese Communist Party in 1948 had their Cultural Revolution, their great step forward. They destroyed all Chinese culture before. In fact, if you go to Taiwan, that's really Chinese. If you go to China now, that's like new. They've got no traditions of past China in China today. That's all in Taiwan. So,
Wow.
it's amazing how one generation can take the world back 500 years.
Yeah, I love. I always love getting history lessons from George.
Oh, I'm not a history teacher at all. In fact, I failed history at school. So.
Yeah.
Wait, you failed history? That's
Yeah, well, nothing to do with history. It was a bit of a pissing contest between me and the history teacher. I didn't like him, and he didn't like me.
Oh, nice.
So I got kicked out of. Oh, it was just this constant argument between. He was such an argumentative teacher. He would actually get into arguments with other teachers and the receptionist at the school, and
Nice.
yeah, eventually. So how I got my history credits was I got given a 49%, which is 1% lower than the pass mark, because Mr. Witterick was just a dick. Everybody hated him. The other teachers hated him. And then basically, principal called me into the office, and he's like, "You're a bit of a history buff. I don't get what's happened here." And I told him that he wouldn't accept my assignments. All right, I'm not a very good student, but yeah, he's being a dick. So we just basically had a half-hour chat about history, and he said, "All right, I'm just going to change your mark to a 51% and give you the credits." So
Wow. I guess
that's how I got my history credits at school.
I guess it all worked out in the end.
Yeah, and then Mr. Witterick ended up pretty much out of a job because the school closed down and he couldn't get another job. So
Oh, bad ending for him. Good ending.
yeah, nobody liked him. Nobody.
Did you? All right, I'm gonna shift a little bit because I did you guys? I know Frank watched that Perspective Philosophy guy after I spoke about him. How about you, George? Did you?
Oh, well, I haven't had a chance this week.
Oh man, what did you
I've been working on something else.
Oh, okay. What did you think about him, Frank?
So he's pretty good. Obviously he's a PhD student in philosophy. He knows a lot. He's kind of careful with my words, but I think he's like a fan. He's aware of Slavoj Žižek and the Hegelian approach. And that's something I'm really interested in because it's pretty cool when Slavoj talks about it. There's like the subconscious and all of that stuff. But I don't think he's the best. I don't think he's the best in explaining it and breaking it down. Because I don't think when he talks about it, and fair enough, he speaks to other people who claim to know philosophy and such. He speaks a PhD language. And it's fair enough. If you want to debate him, he's like, well, if you don't know all this, he has a lot of good references. I don't hold it against him. If he brings up a reference and I don't know it, that's not his fault. That's mine. But in explaining the ideas, I don't think he breaks it down enough in layman's terms. And I think maybe Einstein or someone else said it. It's like, if you can't explain the idea to a child, then you don't understand it enough.
Okay.
But I do think he's smart. I don't agree with everything he says. I think I found some contradictions.
Okay.
I saw the debate with Bosch. Bosch, just that hurt. I've heard his name around, but I never really listened to him. And watching that, it could be a one-time thing, but I did not get a good impression of him. Him and Destiny was interesting. I didn't finish it. I saw a lot of it. But this is where, and I see what you were saying, how Destiny was sort of predicting the line of thought Perspective was going with. But yeah, there was some assumptions in the language. Because Perspective, he's a socialist. And it's just that he has, like, certain people like Danny. I just love picking on Danny. when you have like a fundamental framework, you have like a really deep framework, and then you build off of that a lot. Perspective seems to have a very deep, like a rich, I guess you could say, like, socialist framework. So there's a lot of language based off of that. But I think he's made some bad assumptions or some bad steps that's inconsistent.
Yeah, I would agree because the more that I've listened to him, because I've been listening to him for a couple weeks now, just and as far as like his debate with Vosh, yeah, usually it doesn't go over like that for Vosh. I think Vosh carefully picks and chooses who he speaks with because he didn't post that one to his channel, but he posts every other
No.
debate.
Yeah, I saw the comments. It's like interesting how he didn't upload this video.
Right, yeah, and so I mean, I guess you can see maybe why there's a bit of an appeal if you were to see a debate where Vosh was winning. I mean, you heard his voice and you heard the way in which he structured his sentences and his ideas and all. It sounds like pretty, and his voice is like deep and masculine, and he's asserting these like kind of I don't know. He's apparently a socialist, although Perspective says he's not. But he's
Yeah.
kind of asserting these ideas, and so he has a big audience too, Vosh, and he just keeps growing and growing and growing. Like on YouTube, I think I saw he was live streaming one day, and so I was like, well, I wonder what he's talking about, and I clicked on it, and it was like 7,000 people watching immediately.
Wow.
Whereas like
live stream.
yeah, Destiny on YouTube. I don't know if he's still on Twitch or whatnot, but on YouTube he's only getting like 1,000 viewers on his live streams. So
Yeah, I think Vosh has been around for a while though too.
yeah, he built himself pretty much off of Destiny because I guess he's known Destiny for like 8 years, but solely from Twitch.
Mhm.
And he used to come and comment and stuff like that or whatever and debate him about things. So he pretty much grew his career out of Destiny, and he just started his YouTube channel like last year.
Oh wow.
He's already just kind of skyrocketed.
But yeah, so like, cause Vosh, God, hearing him talk with Perspective, I agree with Perspective. He is not a moral realist. It's like he's not an objective. He doesn't believe in objectivism. It seems to me everything is relative, not just relative. Everything is interpretive, and it's just he doesn't even believe in consistency itself.
Yeah, that was just so like he sounded like so I don't know, such a fucking idiot to me when
like to put it bluntly.
I don't know how to put it any nicer, but when Perspective was like, how do you know that your idea is coherent if it could be anything from like 1 point or 1 second it's this thing, but then the next second it could be that thing just based upon how you feel.
And he's like, well, it makes me happy, so that's why it works. Like,
yeah,
that's not how things work.
No.
Over what time period? That's the thing, right?
No, well, yeah, and the way that Vosh explained his ideas, it was over just whenever he wanted. He could just kind of switch up, and no, there's no inconsistency because it's all based off of how I feel. So that's the consistent part of it, and it's like, no. Like you don't. That's not how you form a coherent structure.
Mm-hmm.
I liked Perspective's idea. He was kind of spouting this idea that in order to have a coherent structure, it actually has to be agreed upon. Because if you have just one person who's saying, well, I have, this idea about this, or they have their own private language, it's not really a coherent structure because it's just between you and yourself.
Yeah, so, okay, this is perfect because I wrote this because this is when... Go ahead.
So you talk about you and yourself. I watched a video from Andrew Kirby, I think his name is, and he was mentioning about the different versions of yourself you have. There was a video about procrastination, and experiments have shown that your future self is a lot. So they said they made this concoction of ketchup and soy, and they said, how much can you drink? People got to about 2 teaspoons, like, oh God, no, no more, right? But then they asked people who they didn't give it to, how much do you think you could drink in 2 weeks' time? And they grossly overestimated it. So your future self in your brain is a lot tougher than you actually are. it's a real big optimist. And it's like the other thing is like, could you walk on this 1 foot wide plank? People go, yeah, and they walk across it. They said, what if we put that between two buildings, at the top of two buildings? They go, oh no. But the people they said to, like, would you be willing to do this in a month's time? They were more willing to take a chance in a month's time than now. Because they thought, oh, I could practice, I could do this. Well, in reality, it's the same thing. It's a 1 foot wide plank, and you're not going to fall off because it's wide enough for you to walk on. But I just wanted to mention that because you talk about the different versions of yourself. It's like that's inconsistent. The different versions of yourself. You're more critical of your past. You're not fully self-aware in the present, but you're an optimist about your future self. So the different versions of yourself, that's not a particularly consistent basis either. So I just thought I found that out this week, and I thought that was quite interesting.
That's funny. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I think on average, that's just people because they think, oh, I can, like you said, I can practice or get better at something, and then they don't usually doesn't usually work out like that.
Yeah, well, in a way, it's a good thing that we're an optimist about our future self because it's like, oh, maybe I can do this job, and then maybe not, but you're at least working towards something.
Yeah, it's like the bias is towards progression. Then.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way of thinking about it. It's, yeah, I mean, it is just it's good to hear that there is data now on the different versions of yourself throughout time you have in your brain, and it's like that's not consistent. There is change over that. It's like x to the power of 3. It goes like that. It's like a graph like
polynomial.
Polynomial. That's it. A graph like that. So yeah, it's we're more anyway. I just thought that was relevant.
Nice.
I liked it.
And then this something you said, Andrew, is like even in language you have to be consistent. So this kind of ties in with something Danny said before, and I kept asking him to repeat it. So it's kind of like a mix between like values, I guess, and morality and all of that. So we all heard that. I think we've all heard this before. You cannot derive an ought from an is. Right?
Right.
Yeah. Just making sure. But then there's a second part. You cannot derive an is without certain oughts. So it's like, so here's an example. Yeah, because that was like kind of trippy. It's like we get you cannot derive values from facts. But you can't even derive a fact without certain values. For example, if I say, like a sentence, just in a sentence itself, like you mentioned, there's an implied consistency when you say a sentence. So it's saying, fine, you cannot derive odds, you can't derive values from facts, but if you want to establish a fact, you need to have some values. And one value is consistency. If you don't value consistency, it's like, how can you claim any fact?
So there has to be like axioms,
I guess.
Or am I thinking of axioms wrong? I thought axioms were like presuppositions that were like fact, known as fact. Am I getting the definition wrong?
I'm just gonna look it up because I honestly don't know
what that means. I always think axioms is the center point of an argument.
So axiomatic means self-evident or unquestionable.
Okay.
Axioms would be things that are self-evident or unquestionable, right?
Yeah. So to me, logic is the ultimate axiom. Logic itself.
Okay.
Because how do you prove logic? You would need to use logic to prove logic.
Yeah. Wouldn't know. I was thinking about that this week, actually. I was like, what if someone questioned me all the way down to like the molecular level of my ideas? And I got all the way down to like, well, I would use, logical reasoning. And if someone were to ask me, well, what is logic and what is logical reasoning? I got stuck and I was like, well, like, shit, I don't really know. I was like, I thought, and I was like, I feel like I would have to Google that one.
Yeah. So actually,
I saw something else this week. Yeah, I didn't really read it. I didn't have time. It was saying that the laws of physics sort of denote that life is an inevitability. So,
yeah, I could see
which
that.
I've always kind of suspected because we're here. But if that's the case, well, it being that it's inevitable that we are, life is going to form, it's inevitable that if the environment doesn't kill the life, you're eventually going to get a life form that it's like Danny's example with the beavers, right? They make dams, but we go a step further than that. We can make something that makes the dam. We can make something that does things for us, like a robot. We've mastered our environment, so that in a way. So in a way, humans are sort of the logical. If life is inevitable from the laws of physics, then the fact that, maybe not in this form, but our brain, our thinking, our logic, and our consciousness is sort of an inevitability, because to pass on our genes and pass on our genes, we're the ultimate species at that now, because we've mastered our environment. Our environment is no longer the master of us. To an extent, we got hit by an asteroid. There's nothing we can do about that. But but that's what I got thinking when I read the abstract on that. I was like, well, yeah, if a species that masters its environment is the logical outcome of inevitability of life.
Yeah.
And using logic is like, here's a thought, here's something objective, and what can we base off of that? And once you've got a sturdy base off of that, what can we base off of that? It's like the pillars of a bridge. You build them one at a time, and you build the road over it, and then you build the next one, and you build the road over it, and it's like, that's sort of what logic is, as far as I can think.
Yeah, no, that's a good parallel, or good example. Then another thing is that, okay, so there's deduction, and then there's, what is it, injunction? Abduction. Oh no, there's just like
Induction.
induction. Yeah, because there's like deductive reasoning and then inductive reasoning.
Yeah, I tried to grasp that concept about a month ago, because I had heard somebody referencing those, and I was having a really hard time, I guess, grasping those concepts. Maybe you can
It's
for me.
sort of the inductive and deductive. So we can deduce. It's like x plus y equals z in math, right? If you've got x and you've got y, we can deduce that that's z. But if inductive reasoning is, well, we've got the answer is z, and we know one of the numbers on the other side is x. Therefore, must be x plus y equals z.
Okay.
Yeah, or something to that effect. It's like 2x on one side of the equation, and you've got 1x on the other side. Well, it must be 1x plus 1x equals 2x.
Yeah, it's kind of like, that's a good, I think that's a good example, because you're kind of like guessing, you're trying to fill in that blank, as opposed to, so the way I would say it also is like, deduction is kind of like a process of elimination. So it's like he said, like x plus y is 2, or z, or like 1 plus 1 is 2. It's, if you have a premise, for example, I've said this before, I think, so let's say Frank is black, and then you say, oh fuck, let's say Frank is a man, and then you say all men are black, then you can deduct that, okay, then Frank is black.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
That's deduction. Like, induction, I just looked it up. An example is like, let's say you have a coin, and you pull a coin from the bag, and it's a penny. And you do it again, and you do it again 3 more times, you could induce that, then all the coins in the bags are pennies.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
kind of like
Yeah.
of a guessing. But then
Right.
someone brought up a philosophy, like the problem with trying to get like with morality, trying to come up with a pillar, because you can always ask why. Why does that work? Why does that work?
Yeah.
Yeah. But then, so that's why the best, more, at least for me, that's why Danny spoke about this too. The best moral starting point, I think, is a logical one.
Okay. Yeah. And, damn it! I just completely lost something. I completely lost it. I was gonna say. Well, I mean, it was relative to this.
Yeah, we're talking about Vosh and perspective.
I completely lost it, but I know it was relative to the objective morality claim, objective versus subjective morality
Yeah.
claims, and so no, I can't get it. I tried to get it. I can't get it. But I actually kind of wondered, I Frank, you saw his videos and how he kind of justified objective morality. Now, as far as the terms go,
Oh, you're talking about language and the consistency with language too.
um,
I don't know
yeah,
if that helps.
I totally lost. I'm sorry.
It'll come back like in 2 seconds, whatever.
Hopefully, but yeah. So he was making a case for objective morality, and so I guess I have this problem, and it's that uh, both of the arguments are his argument for objective morality, and say like someone like Destiny's argument for subjective morality. They both seem to be pretty powerful. So I mean, I don't know. To me, anyway, and I'm kind of I guess a layman in philosophy. I don't really understand. When I went in, I didn't understand the terms, but like I said, I've been watching over the past couple weeks, and I've actually watched their debates or listened to their debates over and over again, a couple of them, and so I guess I grabbed obtained a bit of a better grasp on the terms and things like that. Because when I first went in, I was like, I don't know what the fuck a meta ethic is. Like, I'd never even heard of that before. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean by that? I don't know how many levels you would have to go down to break it down to me.
It's like,
Or
what are
like,
you even saying?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, man, I don't even understand this conversation. It's like it's in a different language.
Yeah.
Like, it's like I'm listening to like a Spanish conversation.
It's like not even that. It's like the words you're saying are English. That's fine. I can say lizard
that's
shopping eats brown, but it doesn't make sense.
Right, yeah.
Worse when it's in your language and you don't understand a word of it. That's way worse.
Yeah.
It's no, I know that feeling where it's like I know the words you're saying are English. I understood none of it. It's difficult to get into those conversations when
Right, yeah. But like listening, like I said, listening over the past couple of weeks, I think I've got a better understanding. So what do you guys think about kind of the objective versus
I
subjective?
think objective is the way to go. You can't.
Yeah.
You could easily. So I don't know if it was super clear. I think Destiny. I think Destiny does believe there's an objective reality because he was saying he's a moral realist as well. Because as opposed to Vosh, it's like everything's just interpretive.
Right.
But he had a different foundation for that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So I kind of sit here and when perspective takes his idea all the way down the line and says like, where does this originate? And he's like, well, it originates at the point of desire for well-being. Like before anything else, it's like you have to be well enough to do whatever you're going to do, whether it's what someone else would consider suffering, or whether it's something that everyone would agree on that's good. So people will say, well, you can't say that there's an objective morality based upon well-being and suffering because some people like to suffer. And it's like, well, that's their state of well-being is in that suffering, like a masochist, sadist, or whatever. So I guess that's where he kind of got me thinking, because before I was pretty convinced by Destiny's ideas about the subject and morality. It made a lot of sense because it was like, well, yeah, how do you know? um, I thought about the implications, but he was saying, well, how do you really say like something is good or bad, and
Yeah.
all of these things, and how do you convince somebody else who's building from some foundation that their structure is wrong? How do you tell which society is better when one of them is, say, like, he always uses the gay marriage example where he's like, well, okay, one society thinks that gay marriage is not okay, right? And one society thinks it is okay. How do you tell which one is right? And then how does the other one convince that one that they're right? If they're following through logically, like they can still reach their own conclusions. So
Yeah, so okay, at least for me, a couple of things. One, this sounds very similar to a conversation Jordan and Sam were having. Because Sam is like, well-being, but Jordan, keeps trying to poke at him. With this quick example, like the gay marriage example, you have two things. This is where you have, let's say, logic versus pragmatism. Because sometimes, you'll never, no one is omniscient. It's like a science experiment. You'll never know every single little thing, but you try and you end up choosing what works better, and that's what sucks. But you just have to be careful. You always have to leave that caveat because maybe what's the word? It might change over a long enough time. It looks better, but maybe for 100 years, maybe 1,000, maybe 10,000, but maybe after 1,000,000 years, oh, this came out on top. And that's why pragmatism, it's our best tool to me in conjunction with logic. So, for example, like, I had one. And like, pragmatically, cavemen, they ate meat and shit, meats, plants, and whatever. Let's say logically, I'm sorry, no, I can't come up with an example on the spot.
Yeah, I mean, like, so
all right.
the objective subjective morality question is not something I've given a great deal of thought to, but the subjective seems to be more on an interpretive world. And yeah, I do think there is an objective world. There's atoms, molecules, and there are objective things. And there are things that aren't made of atoms and molecules that are objective things as well. And there are subjective things. So there's both. But while the physical world and the world we live in could be considered objective, our brains are interpretive entities. Our brains are machines that interpret data, and we all know this. It's like, oh, you watch Dirty Harry films. All of a sudden, everybody's talking about Dirty Harry films or whatever. It's like, what I think happens there is just attentional blindness. So we just blank out nearly all the information unless it's relevant to us. So we're missing huge amounts of the objective world when we're interpreting the world. So it is an interpretive world. So, and then our morality, our behavior is determined by our brain. So it's like maybe your decision making, maybe how you are actually going about your morality is in a subjective way, but there could also be objective morality outside in the real world, but the way you're behaving, the best you can come up with in your behavior is subjective. And so maybe there's more than one level of analysis to take with this. It's like your behavior is subjective, but you can interpret others' behavior as more objective.
And then, so here's a quick example. I just finally figured out. Let's say raising kids, right? From like a baby to 18 years old. You do what works. You take input from society. You take input from your parents. and other cultures and the internet. You take input as much as you can to pragmatically raise your kids the best way. But in terms of logically, there's only certain conditions that are guaranteed. Like I know 100% guaranteed my child needs food. My child needs touch, human touch, let's say. There are very few things we know 100% to be true, but there's a lot of things that we know are pragmatically true. What people are not going to do is, you know what? I'm only going to do what's 100% logical until I figure out the rest. Because your child will die. Because you don't know everything. So the best you can do is try and do a combination.
Paralysis by analysis.
I'm sorry, George.
Paralysis by analysis. Sometimes you just need to take action and do something just because, without thinking about it. Because if you spent all your time making a plan and following a plan and getting evidence, you would just be weighed down and you wouldn't do anything. Experimentation very often, a lot of scientific experimentation is, I wonder what would happen if this happened, if I tried this, and then boom, you find something new, and just a lot of scientific discovery has come from, fuck it, let's give this a try, and so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm really not the guy to ask about objective or subjective morality, but
because I think we can easily disprove subjective morality. Because some guys could say, killing kids at 5 o'clock, man, I think that's not such a bad idea. And it's like, well, no.
Right. Well, I guess that would be. So I would say there were a couple of silver bullets for subjective morality for me anyway. When perspective philosophy and Destiny were having a conversation, and then when he was speaking with Vosh about it, that one of them was the fact that you wouldn't be able to create a coherent structure. You would pretty much have your private language by like that you adhere by, and it's I don't understand how that would be any sort of like, how do you get a coherent structure? It's like, well, yeah, it does seem that it has to be an agreed upon kind of thing in order for it to be coherent. There was that kind of point, and then there was a point that it's like, well, okay, this guy could be like, oh yeah, I like to fuck kids, and it's like in a subjectively moral world, like I said, the implications were kind of weird to me in the subjective morality case, where it's like, well, in a subjectively moral world, you couldn't make any moral assertions toward that guy that likes to fuck kids, because his moral structure would be just as justified as yours. If you believe in subjective morality, that's what because
one of the
pretty much right.
Yeah, an issue I come up with, I run into occasionally is, I emigrated. My family moved when I was 9. I've lived in a few different countries, so I've a broader experience of the world than most people. And so in Niagara on the Lake, where I used to live, there was a lot of memorials and monuments to escaped slaves from the South, from the southern states. So I kind of grew up knowing that, yeah, there was slavery. This is where people escaped to. And so it's just something that I'm much more aware of than people here in France, because they haven't had slavery in mainland France in hundreds and hundreds of years, and it's just not a thing. But objectively, I think this is an objective morality issue. One of the difficulties I have is I really hate when the college sends us students for co-op, training, right? Because they're not paid, and it drives me nuts. And this is in England too. You get these co-op students, and it's like, no. I objectively, it bugs me, because it's like, so they want to work, we're going to profit, and they're not getting paid. As far as I can tell, there's a word for that, and it's called slavery. Now, we're paying them in experience, and it's like, yeah, but that's not being paid money. And the other thing that bothers me about that is like I'm a contractor, so when you get two students do a month's work, they've taken a week's work away from me because what they can achieve in a month is what I usually achieve in a week. So it's like they're not paid, they're undercutting me. So that's affecting my wages and the length of my contract. That annoys me. And everyone goes, yeah, but it's students. And it's like, it bothers me, and it doesn't bother anybody else because they just don't have the I don't know, personal experience with that history. But for me, I know it's an objective. I'm not being subjectively moral here because everybody justifies it, and the kids are perfectly happy because they want to get out of college as quick as they can, and this speeds it up, and they're just being practical. But for me, it really bothers me. It's like you're cutting into my wages and undercutting my bloody wages, and slavery's bloody wrong, right? So, being purely morally objective, objectively moral, it's very impractical because you end up like if you were a caveman, you'd be saying, "Oh, we should be vegans." And it's like, yeah, but that's not possible when you're a caveman. And if these kids both
debate you on that.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
You know what I mean, right? Maybe it was possible, but it was just an example. It was a throwaway.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, okay, these kids aren't going to get an actual job if they don't have the co-op time. I, however, did. I never did co-op as a welder or anything like that. I just got a job as a welder and learned while I was there. So for me, it really bugs me. But and it's I couldn't rip my boss a new arsehole and say, look, you've got fucking slaves working in there. Well, they're not really slaves; they're co-op students. It's like that's subjective. To change the classification from slave to co-op student is purely subjective. Objectively, they're doing the same thing. They're working, we're making a profit, and they're not getting paid. So it's very impractical. Objective morality is very impractical.
Wait, you saying okay?
Objective or subjective morality?
Objective, because I'm being purely objective about this, not the practicalities and the subjective. It helps them in this way, that way. It's like if you take these three objective things, they're making stuff, we're making money from it. They're not getting paid, right? Well, you could classify that as an apprentice, or you could classify that as a slave. And I would say apprentice is more subjective classification because, they're getting experience. They're learning. It's going to go on their CV. It might help them. But objectively, it's like we made money, they didn't. Slave.
Right. Okay. So that objective part, is the coherent part, right?
Yeah.
Because you said what did he say just now?
Objective morality is incredibly impractical.
Yeah, and I somewhat agree with that too. Okay. So here's my thing. So the way I would say it, about at least a better way than I said it before would be we can easily I think there can be a case to logically disprove subjective morality. But it's much easier to pragmatically disprove subjective morality. Because if a person says, I believe in subjective morality, I'll be like, okay, cool, me too. I can punch you because it's good for me. And, like, that's how, I think that's why people, for the most part, say, yeah, there is an objective moral. We don't know it, but we're trying to figure it out, or else anyone could do what they want to do and society wouldn't function.
Right.
But then I would say for like George's comment, and it kind of ties in what I said before, like the claim that objective morality is impractical. I think there's something to that. It's the same thing with the crackhead. The objective morality it's somewhat religious. So like taking any crack is wrong, and that's right. but that's not practical for the crackhead who needs to wean off it.
Hmm.
And I think it's somewhat religious. So you look at Christianity, right? Very briefly, it's like you needed Jesus Christ because no one was perfect, and that's how you would like get into paradise. He was the way up there. The thing is, again, because no one was perfect, and the Bible, the law, the rules, it's like you're not perfect. If we know that because you're not following all these rules, and I think there's something to that. It's because we're not moral. That's the standard we want to live to. But it's if we don't live to that standard, then you die off.
Yeah.
Like the crackhead. So that's where it's impractical. What's practical is to get better over time. You can't hold yourself. If everyone held, like right now, straight up, if everyone held themselves to the highest standard of morality, everyone would kill themselves because no one reaches that standard. No one's perfect. So that's what I think. That's how I interpret that claim. Like objective morality isn't practical.
Okay. Yeah, maybe objective reality is the goal, and subjective reality is the path of redemption. It can be misused. It could be used in other ways, but if you're objectively moral, you're using subjective morality as a path of redemption.
Well, okay, so I think here's the way I see it, and so there's objective morality, right? There's perfection, and what sucks is because I don't want to go off a tangent. And I use religion just because we kind of know the stories already. Like George, you're familiar with Christianity. Andrew, you are as well.
Yeah.
Like Jesus Christ, Adam and Eve, all the typical stories.
Right.
So I think like there's Adam and Eve times. There's the perfect times. There's heaven. There's perfection. There's this higher level of being. But I think with humans, we're born with sin. We're imperfect. So what do? Well, we need a process to become perfect. So, okay, this is what I was telling Danny. Here's a perfect example. It's like the idea of a cure. That's not a good thing in a way. In a way, a cure is not a good thing because a cure implies a disease. Ideally, you wouldn't want any disease. So that's what I mean. Like, let's say in paradise, in heaven, there's no such thing as a cure because there's no such thing as a disease. But a cure I'm gonna draw parallels. Same thing with so you don't want to incentivize cures. You want to incentivize preventative disease or preventative behaviors to get disease. Same thing with forgiveness. I don't want to prioritize forgiveness. That's not because there's a fallacy with that. For example, Andrew, I'm gonna be like, have you forgiven anyone today? No? Well, forgiveness is a great virtue. That's like the highest virtue. Let me help you out. I'm going to go over there and slap you and then ask for forgiveness so then you can forgive me. I'm helping you out by giving you the possibility for forgiveness.
Right, okay, yeah, I see.
So you see, there's like this forgiveness, there's a cure, there's this incremental improvement process, the redemptive process. That in itself is like, it shouldn't exist, but we need that.
Yeah.
So this process, that in itself, there's a perfect way to do that process too. Just like there's a perfect cure. You don't want a cure that'll take 50 years to work. You want a cure, the ideal cure would work instantaneously. Even though a cure itself wouldn't exist in the perfect world. So I think this perfect cure, this perfect redemption process, that's what we need to do. That's what we need to do. And in the Bible, that would be Jesus. That's how you get there. So there is still an objective morality for the process. That I think that still exists. There's still an objective process, even though we're not capable of achieving the objective morality as of now.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I have to go run my errands, guys.
Cool.
I like.
Nice talking to you.
It was nice talking to you guys too. I was glad to end on that. I really liked that one, Frank. So thank you for putting that into my brain. I appreciate you guys, man. I always learn a lot.
Yeah, it's good fun. It's good fun.
Yeah, thanks for showing perspective.
Yeah. yeah.
I've got him on my YouTube right now. I typed him in while you were talking.
Yeah, if you have time, man, I don't know. I think he's pretty cool. I think he's got some cool ideas. So, but I mean, I look forward to speaking with you guys next week.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it'll be for a little bit longer. No, today it was only for a short bit. But,
that's all right. It's all right. Not too long. Not too short. You were here for an hour and a half, so I think you went over budget a bit.
Yeah.
That's all right though. All right, guys. I'll see you guys next week. Yeah.
Have a good one.
Peace.
Do you have any other subjects for today, or?
Let's see. Because that was interesting. I was trying to think what else, because the objective morality thing was the main question I was thinking about from Andrews.
Yeah, it's not something that I would need to do a lot more research on it to really come up with a model. But being objectively moral is a pain in the arse. it's you end up in arguments like why have you got kids here and not getting paid?
Yeah.
It's like, but it's like we can, and it's like I can stab you, but I can also go to prison. Shit out of you, but I'm not going to. It's and of course, like history will look at everybody. History looks at everybody so badly. It's like, those damn meat eaters in the 21st century.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure they'll also be in a place of privilege.
Oh yeah.
They'll have
protect their privilege, and
they'll have all the technologies and the capabilities to not have to eat meat.
or just grow meat in a like stem cell burgers.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. Like fair enough, they can critique, but they also have to acknowledge they're at a place of privilege as well.
This is what we've been like. Everybody in France has just been screaming and shouting about this woman saying no more dreaming, but it's like recently, Destin, have you ever seen Smarter Every Day on YouTube?
I think that sounds familiar.
Yeah, he works in Alabama. He works for the Army ballistics people. He has a lot to do with NASA too. He's a real Alabama guy. I love his videos. But you guys have got that program where you're trying to program autonomous landers for the moon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the rover and such.
Yeah, but these are landers that are actually trying to automate the landing procedure, and they've been using. There's two teams. One's using jet fuel, and the other's using hydrogen peroxide. Well, watching his video about the hydrogen peroxide gave me the idea, well, maybe we could use that as a sort of turboprop instead of just a rocket. So I started looking into that, found that the X-15 used a turbo pump that ran off of hydrogen peroxide.
Oh, that's cool.
And because I wanted a throttleable engine. They didn't want an on-off liquid. Right, so they ran a turbo pump that was basically a jet engine off of hydrogen peroxide and a gearbox, and that's how they ran the... But anyway, it's like to get to the point where, I've been working on a design this week for a test bed for a turbo, basically a turbo that runs off of hydrogen peroxide, autopropellant, to see if you can get the same. On maths, you're going to lose 20% fuel efficiency. You're going to lose some power. But the exhaust product is zero carbon.
Exactly. That's the trade-off.
Yeah, that's the trade-off, right? You're going to lose fuel efficiency. The fuel wants to eat through everything it touches, but there's some plastics that you can deal with for that. Whereas like the rocket engines, you need a big tank that's a pressurant, and then you need another tank of nitrogen to pressurize that tank. So, but with a turbine engine, you don't need a pressure, you just need a fuel pump. So I've been designing that, and the workshop at the gliding club they said I could use to build this thing. So
Very nice.
so I'm hoping to make a prototype pretty soon. But I've had to spend a hell of a lot of 100 low lead, burn a lot of carbon to get to the point where I've got the idea to make a test bed for something that can improve. And it's like, like our countries went from oil burning, throwing gasoline in rivers because it was useless. That's literally what they used to do with gasoline.
Yeah.
It was a byproduct. It was useless. They'd pour it in the river, and then all the fish would die, and they go, whatever. And then it got used for cars, and then cars got more efficient, and now cars are becoming electric. And the thing is like, you're in America, I'm in Europe. We're the billion people in the world who are doing half the pollution. But the improvements we're making are being applied to India, China, all over the world. So, India is not burning fossil fuels; they're going straight to solar power. So the improvements we make have global consequences. So it's like the Green Party here is just got this attitude that, oh my God, we're polluting. We just need to stop doing everything and stay at home and just pretend, just be scared and stay at home. And it's like, no, the solution is better technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like to me, there's always this trade-off between like growth and stability. And it's the same thing you're saying. So like we can grow faster but become less stable. Let's say it's like throwing more gasoline into the river.
Yeah.
But the consequences at the end might justify by providing these amazing technological leaps for the other countries. So it's like maybe we should. It's this trade-off. It's this balance of make as much progress as possible before we kill the Earth.
Yeah.
As long as we stop before then we can give everyone else the technology.
Yeah, you're going, oh my God, just don't fly your aeroplanes and just stay at home. That's not going to improve commercial aviation.
Exactly, because that's no growth.
All it's going to do is delay the point at which carbon dioxide, say, burns the planet, for want of a better word, right? But if we say, right, well, we're all going to learn how to fly and we're all going to try and make an improvement, the graph, it flattens out, and then someone will come along and make an improvement that everybody, like this idea that, oh, the world's getting overpopulated. It's like, yeah, maybe for the food supply, but the more people there are, the more geniuses we have. And one genius can make an improvement for 7 billion people. So it's, you see these apps, it's like these telephones are incredible things. They've improved people's lives vastly. And it's like one genius at a time made one little improvement.
Yeah.
So,
and then there's like, again, the counter argument. Well, we could play it safer, but let's say you apply it to like cancer saving technology. If we held off on the progress of that, and I'm pretty sure there were some detrimental environmental progress associated with figuring out cancer. Let's say if we figured it out 200 years later in order to help the environment, well, that's 200 years of people dying of cancer that we can no longer save.
And don't forget, like if you look at the effects of the Holocaust in Europe, right? Jewish families. My dad worked with a Jewish guy. He was quite young, and they were really into the family tree thing. And he brought in his family tree, and they rolled it out, huge thing, and 1944, boom, all gone. Like there was only like these tiny little twigs that survived after that. And it's like they didn't just kill 90% of his family. They also killed all the people that never came along because of it.
Yeah.
So it's like if you want geniuses, better nutrition for kids, better nutrition for babies, bring people out of poverty, and you'll have way more geniuses to solve these problems instead of, oh my God, we just got to stop having children. It's like, that's not going to solve the problem. It's going to delay it.
Yeah, yeah.
If you say, all right, let's make sure every kid gets good nutrition so that they're the smartest that they can be. Oh, they're going to solve all the problems around in their little environment and improve. And if for example my monopropellant engine works, which right now, very good chance of blowing something up. but still, if that works, then you're looking at what I was thinking was taking the PT6 Pratt and Whitney engine, right? You got PT6 Pratt and Whitney. They've made 51,000 of them. They cost $1 million an engine. So it's like, okay, so there's room here to make an engine that's about the same price, and they've made 51,000 of them. You could make quite a big factory making these, H1, right? Whatever we call them. But so economically, there's a big enough market, and there's an incentive to make it, even if it's a little bit less powerful. And but the benefits would be, if there's a fuel spillage, water it down.
Done.
Water it down and go and have a beer. Whereas fuel spillage right now is, oh my god, it's not pretty.
Yeah.
But technology improves, and it's like Danny was saying, like they thought they were going to run out of color TV by a certain date. It's like, no, we use a completely different technology now, and it's like not everybody not buying a color TV didn't solve that problem. Coming up with a better color TV solved that problem.
Yeah, I think that's the same thing. It's like Darwinian, like every parallel, like technology. And I think the same thing with like morality. Like we're gonna figure it out which one's the right way and all of that.
I mean, on the moral thing, like there seems to be this effect where if let's say there's an objective morality here. If someone's on the right wing and they believe that all black people should be segregated and everything, once they see a black person's perspective, they can't unsee it. Right? They lose that ability to keep the
ignorance.
Not just ignorance. Keep the idea that black people should be segregated. Once white people in the southern states actually got to know black people and the integration started, especially for the youngsters, this was very easy. They mixed together much better. But it was nearly impossible to find a white kid that grew up with black kids that was for segregation after the integration of the southern states. So it's like, with the objective morality thing, it's like once people have seen maybe something that's more objectively moral, they can't unsee it, if you know what I mean. It's kind of hard to explain.
No, yeah. It's like once people are able to see another person's perspective, once they're aware of that, maybe you get a little bit more moral.
Yeah, and it's something like that. There's a hell of a lot of resistance with racists when you say you're being racist, and it's like there's a lot of resistance from the KKK. But when a member leaves the KKK because they came into contact with a black man that became their friend, they completely leave. They can never go back, and it's sort of funny when you see like Lacey Green. Remember her?
No.
Oh god, when she was like 19, she was this YouTuber feminist, and she was just this crazy YouTuber.
Yeah, I know this person.
Yeah, and then apparently she got some boyfriend, and then completely quit the feminism, went to university to get a PhD, and it's right now, like 5 years later, she's like a completely reasonable person. But when she was 19, she was just this crazy feminist. And it's like once you see the other perspective, you just can't unsee it. Maybe something to do with objective morality. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just I saw her picture and just nostalgia a little bit. Like I
Oh yeah,
remember this.
all the memories come back. But no, I mean, like, it's like good for her. You know, she's grown and she's learned and she's. I believe from what I heard, it was a boyfriend who really opened her eyes to a lot of it, and it's like Sui Park as well, the girl who was like cancelled Colbert. Like a year later, she was like, "Oh my god, I'm so ashamed to be a part of cancel culture," and it's like, "Well, good for you. You've grown up." You know. So,
Exactly.
But
All right. Well, I'm gonna head out as well.
yeah,
Just catch
yeah,
up with my job and the work.
yeah. I'm in quarantine. Well, curfew
Mhm.
after 7 o'clock each night, so I got nothing to do. So, well, have a good day at work, and we'll chat next week.
Definitely. See you.